What's up? This is Casey with another episode of the show I don't have a name for. Today's t-shirt of the day is my End Epilepsy t-shirt. I assure you it's purple. February is Epilepsy Awareness Month. Purple is the color for epilepsy. Uh, to make sure you're not confused with my last few episodes, I'm wearing a green hat and a red scarf. Today is February 10th, which means it's International Epilepsy Awareness Month. Ugh. So, my last episode, this is part two of a two-part series. My last episode, I talked about how I got epilepsy and how epilepsy has affected my life a little bit, and just about some of the seizures I've had, some of the, maybe more interesting ones. So I thought I would just start back with those. So in 2013, my youngest brother got married, and the day after his wedding, his mother-in-law was making a lot of food in my brother's house. And we were having a great time, just kind of reliving what happened at the wedding, blah, blah, blah. Then I woke up in an ambulance, and it was really scary. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who, I don't think anybody was with me. I had some EMTs kind of yelling at me. They were kind of dicks, to be honest. The names of the drugs, Korean drugs to American drugs, don't necessarily translate and all that. So it was a nightmare to go from having such a wonderful time with your family to a horrible time in an ambulance and then having to pay for all of that stuff. My track record with American healthcare is very piss poor, and honestly, I hate American healthcare. um, I had a seizure on an airplane while I was going to a different wedding. This was also pretty terrifying. They almost had to turn the plane around. Luckily, there was a doctor. He was a podiatrist, and he kind of just sat with me, and he was a really nice guy. But he, told me all, everything was going to be all right and all blah, 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 blah. But I had to get wheeled out. It's company policy or whatever to wheel you out in a wheelchair and take 1,000 tests. And I had to do all this shit in front of everybody in the LaGuardia airport, which is just, everybody's looking at you like you're some kind of freak. Thank goodness it wasn't now. Everybody would think I have coronavirus or something even worse. I went on a Tinder date, which isn't anything special, but showed up early, which also isn't anything that special. But I thought of something cool to say to make it seem like we weren't meeting off the internet. And this girl and I had talked a few times, and all of a sudden we were talking and blah blah blah, and then I didn't know where the hell I was. I knew I was in a cafe, but I didn't know where this cafe was. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't even know what year it was. I didn't know who this girl was. I didn't know if I was supposed to be sitting down. Honestly, it looked kind of like the campus diner where I was a waiter at NYU. So I just kind of went to the bathroom for a few minutes and panicked and, wondered what the hell was going on. And I don't know why this lady even stayed around to be with me, but she did. Which is a credit to her. Much later, I was hanging with another best friend in Chicago, and And a girl I went on a date. Okay, so I was hanging with a girl in Chicago, um, and we were just chilling at a bar, and I invited this other girl that I'd gone on a date with a few days earlier to this bar. She just lived nearby or something or other. And I just kind of invited her on the off chance that, she wasn't going to come. And she ended up coming over, and we had our drinks and everything else. And then I had a seizure. I had a big one. And we were sitting at a big high top bar table. And I don't know how these two little girls kept me from falling over, but somehow they managed to. Luckily, my friend told my date that I had epilepsy, and maybe somehow they managed to do it. Another nice thing is, I think the bouncer thought I was just, blind drunk and was falling over piss drunk. So that was yet another nightmare, but I met a really nice girlfriend over it. While I was a tutor in America for a while, and I tutored quite a few kids when I was living in Seattle. And I was tutoring one kid, and we were, and this is basically how seizures go. I was teaching, and then the next thing I know, I hit my face on the desk, and I bitten through my lips, and I been through my tongue, and I was just bleeding everywhere, and it was just a disaster. Luckily, my boss knew that I'd had epilepsy and sent me home. And I don't even think I realized that I'd had a seizure until I got home, and I lived with my aunt at the time, and she asked me what the hell happened to my face, like I'd been punched or something. And it was just, you know, again, it was just, it was horrifying for me. I can't imagine what it was like for that little kid, though. Speaking of jobs and bosses, here in Korea, I kind of had to come out of the epilepsy closet a few times, but I had to come out with my current boss, and it certainly wasn't easy. You know, it's epilepsy is still really misunderstood all over the world, but Korea is still kind of sort of not that ahead of the curve. I told her I had epilepsy. I kind of explained what it was, what to do. And then a few days later, we were talking, and it was something completely unrelated to everything. And then next thing I knew, I was home, and I had 1,000 text messages from her, and missed calls, and she was wondering what the hell had gone on. And I guess we were talking, I was standing, and I'd fallen over and had a legit grand mal seizure in front of my boss. So that's pretty terrifying, especially if you think that might come into effect, if you get hired for the next semester. I was at my cousin's wedding. I had two small seizures in a row. It was kind of like my brother's wedding's seizure, where we were just kind of reliving the night before and talking about things. I was with my brother and my youngest brother and my mom and my aunt, and then I just had one seizure, and then I had one seizure and hit my face on a washing machine, and then I had another seizure and just kind of passed out into my suitcase, and it was just humiliating to do this in front of my family. And then I had to go to the fucking hospital again. I was in Cincinnati with another best friend, and we were watching a stand-up comedy show, and I was just having, a wonderful time. We were having a great time. We weren't, um, it's not like there were flashing lights. It wasn't like it was a nightclub. It was just a stand-up comedy show. And next thing I knew, I was really confused, and my face really hurt. And what had happened is I was just sitting in a regular chair, but had taken a nosedive and had a grand mal seizure on the ground. And I don't know how many people saw me. Um, we were sitting relatively close to the stage. I don't know if the stand-up comedians made fun of me or even noticed, or they just, you know, avoided the entire situation. But to think about it was humiliating. And then I met my friends, and I was kind of just doing a tour through America, and I met uh, some of my friends for the first time in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and I saw some of my friends and their kids. I met their kids for the first time, and my face just looked like I was in a fucking bar fight, and I had to explain to these little children, you know, I've got something wrong with me, where sometimes I just, my brain turns off and I might just fall over. And it, it's, it's not very easy to explain. Um, um, uh, when I was going through New Zealand, I was on a bus, and there was a super cool young dude from Australia, and we kind of hit it off and talked about punk rock and heavy metal and shit. And turned out we were going to the same hostel, but uh, which is a godsend, because when I got to the front desk, I had an absence seizure, and I didn't even realize it until a few hours later. And I talked to him and I asked him if I'd acted kind of funny when I got to the front. I hadn't been drinking, I hadn't been doing anything, I hadn't, I'd been sleeping just fine. But he said, yeah, when you got to the front, you couldn't answer any of your questions. They asked you a bunch of questions, and, they thought maybe you didn't speak English. I had to take out your passport and fill out all your information, and I had to find out, so he had to do all of my, this is just humiliating that I can't take care of myself anymore. And this is the last one of the day of everything, but here's a kind of sort of a big reason I don't sit on bar stools as much as I used to. But when I worked at the university, or Minnesota State University, I during my break times I used to sit in the cafe, and they had some bar stools. And I used to write, or I used to just read during my lunch breaks or just my breaks. And I had a seizure, and I fell out of this bar stool and I hit my head, which is kind of a double whammy. And some people saw it, some people called 911, and the campus police came, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And the campus police were really good, but they were asking me a lot of questions. And like I say before, sometimes I get really panicky and I get really emotional. And they're asking me, what's your name? Are you okay? You know, all these other things. And I couldn't remember the answers to any of this. And I couldn't remember, you know, to even pull out my little uh, dorky keychain or dorky necklace. I couldn't remember the name for epilepsy. I couldn't remember the words, you know, I work here. This is just an accident, you know. And honestly, I thought I was going to get arrested because of this. It was just a terrible experience. Um, so, uh, this is so these last few episodes are kind of what it's like for me and what having epilepsy is like. Uh, it's obviously it's not a lot of fun games. I still don't know what causes my epilepsy. It could be me breaking my neck. It could be concussions. But it could be, you know, 30% of people who have epilepsy don't know. Um, if you want a lot of other numbers, you can watch another video of mine. But lots of people who have epilepsy don't get help. So, you know, it's one of the more understudied, underfunded um, problems in the world. So please, you know, understand. You know, we hear this all the time, but everybody's got some kind of problem. So if you see somebody having some kind of issue like this, you know, try to make sure they don't hit their head and try to keep them calm. You know, especially if it's me, well, if it's anybody, um, uh, I might just need some time alone um, to kind of gather myself. Um, you know, asking me questions may just make me panic some more. Um, Thanks for watching. I hope this helps. I hope you have got an attention span of longer than 17 minutes. Honestly, I thought this video was going to be about 5 minutes long, you know, for 2 videos, but that didn't turn out that way. I appreciate all the help and all the love and kind words people have sent out to me. Thanks a million. You're the best. My next videos will be happy and fun. Okay, thanks. Bye.